All right, we're continuing with the pot. The outside's looking, it's got this rough texture on it. So what I'm gonna try and do is I'm gonna use this knife. If you had a fancy pants, a little scraper because you work in a clay studio, you can use that, and like that can do some good things for you. But maybe you don't have that. What this does do is you can go around and I learned this from a video that someone recorded of a woman making a pot in Burkina Faso. So like she does that professionally, like for her livelihood. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. But that is some fancy pants scraper or metal rube of death. Maybe you don't have that. But you got a butter knife? Let's see what the butter knife can do. The woman I learned this from, I'm gonna stand up to get better. She didn't have a butter knife. She didn't have a fancy pants metal scraper. She had a stick, flattened stick. Not too shabby. Kind of like icing a cake. There's your butter knife. Not bad, huh? And this is still pretty wet. I mean, this has been made in the past like 15, 20 minutes. So like it's all pretty fresh. It's good to do this kind of now, and we'll refine it even further later on. And if I'm thinking this is a bottle and I kind of want this to go in, I could apply a little pressure to get a little curve going, so it's concave right here. You can also, if I want that, I'm going to go around, just kind of squeeze a little bit, a little each time. You can see that it affects the form. You can squish it. So I'm just going to go around and kind of like little movements, little squish, little movement, little squish, little movement, little squish, little movement, little squish. To get that form a little closer to how I want it in as a final. Because I feel like I have one more coil to go. I have one more coil to go, and that's going to be about it. Try and do this so you can see what's going on. So I have this idea of the form in my head a little bit. May not look exactly like it. You might have a sketch that you've done of the piece of the form that you want. So you keep thinking about that final form, and you're working towards it slowly and incrementally. You're kind of sneaking up on that form. I'm going to try and thin this out a little bit by squeezing it, and I'm going to get a little height too. Feel a little flaw on the inside, so I can spend some time smoothing that, making sure that's good. Rim feels like it's getting a little dry, so I'm just adding a little water to it. So that water has a little time to soak in. I'm going to add another coil. So I'm just going around, slow rotations and a little squeeze each time, trying to get it to be like as consistent as I can or as I would like it to be. Not necessarily as consistent as possible. I'm not sure I like that phrase because everything in life is a balance. Like you can work on this for 100 hours and it still might not be consistent. So like piece has to be finished at some point, you know? But you're asking what was the fork for? I have this fork. This is getting a little dry and the coil's a little dry. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go around the rim. I'm dipping it in the water. It comes up with a little water on it. You can see that. Water goes down to the prongs. So it collects a little water and I go around the rim. And this is a quick way to score the rim. I work back and forth, switching up directions, hatching, cross hatching, scratching that all up. Then I can add the next coil on top. You gotta remember to put your love on top too. It's gotta happen at some point, so finally put your love on top. I'm gonna go again. Oh, this is kind of like one of those, like, that looks like a gourd. It's taking on like a gourd form. Never made a gourd pot. I had this idea that it was going to be like this bottle, but now I think, now that I got it like this, I think I'm going to stretch out this little area and make it into a one of those gourds, kind of like a butternut squash shape. So sometimes you have that idea or that sketch, but sometimes the pot takes on a life of its own and you're like, oh, hey, you really want to do this. Like this is like, maybe that's your destiny. Maybe that's what you're supposed to be. So who am I? How arrogant am I? How arrogant would I be to say that I know what you should be? So it's okay that it changes a little bit. That's all right. It's still mostly there, but it kind of has this other life, and that's fine. So that's kind of what it's looking like now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and use my thumb. I'm going to put a little water on the inside here. So this whole area inside will be wet and kind of movable and malleable. I'm also going to try and reposition the camera. So you get a better view of what's going to happen here. So you can see it moving like right here. I'm taking my thumb and I'm kind of going up the pot. And I'm stretching it out a little bit. I'm pushing on the clay. See where it starts. When clay is wet, it can stretch okay. It can stretch pretty well. So this, what I'm doing now, is serving a double purpose. It's helping to make sure the coils are well connected, and it's pushing out this surface. Add a little water to it because it's getting a little dry. It is winter time. It is the heat. The heat is on, so the air is kind of dry. Huh? Oh, it's looking like a gourd. What do you think? I'm also going to compress the rim, the top edge a little bit. I do have some work to do to make that a little better opening. All right, now, not bad, right? Just a little finishing at the top. I don't know, maybe you're like, that looks like trash. I'm like, hey. I'm just adding a few pieces of clay where I think they need to be on the rim to make it a little more even. Shift the camera again. Skirt. Tilt. Just trying to refine. I'm gonna refine the rim a little. So I'm using enough water that my fingers can slide over the surface. And it kind of squeezes just the clay a little bit. So it's a little thinner than it might have been otherwise. So there you go, little gourd. And there's a little handle right there so you can pick it up. Pour out a little tea, a little iced tea in the summertime with some mint maybe. So there you go, that's however long it was. I formed it. I'm now going to let it set up a little bit, and then I'll come back to adjust the form, not with this fancy paddle, but with something you might have at home. That's the premise, all right? A little thing right there. So there you go. We'll see how it cleans up.